let's play I.
Yeah, I'm after you.
Wait,
That's the savage. No, wait, no. I don't feel like that savage. No, we'll just play it spelled.
Okay, let's go first. Who's next?
Me.
I don't think of you.
We are
Get in line.
No, you get back.
Okay. Which way is it going? This way now. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm
You have to suffer.
We do down
Nope.
there.
This Frederick. Yes, I'm talking. After Jonathan actually believed that my name was actually.
That was almost a side shot.
That's what made it so funny.
That's so
Actually.
I never do that. Nate, it's rubbing up. Oh, wait. That's an explosion.
I missed.
Oh my god, if that happened again,
That would have been.
signature move, best way to get out.
Start with your right hand.
I'm not No, it's still rolling. Still rolling. Move! Nate, every time you put it on the dot and just find this way.
Keep your foot on.
Camera.
Oh.
Maya! Are you stashing away all the candy?
No! I bought Kira a Reese's peanut butter cups and I bought me myself.
On the table.
Whose is it?
Caleb! Oh, your dad's still alive? You didn't die last night.
So sorry.
Some people like when I'm doing this, they just do it quick on the audience. It's like, wait, stop.
Oh my god. I told you, today. No,
Kill him!
no, kill him! You need to do the Jaden. Climb up on the table and then touch the ball. You gotta think that you're not gonna hit it. Oh! Obstruction.
I'm done. Everybody. Make sure that stop.
Alex, you and your evil being. hitting it with his hand. And then he throws the white ball somewhere else. Nate, you're gonna break the pocket!
Why do you broke a pocket and went to the phone table?
Don't you dare!
Where's Bryce and Nate?
Like that.
Where's Jaden? The Jadinator.
It's hard because it's
Not enough.
so when we go back,
I mean, that was the, like, you know. Oh my god! Alex! Nate, if you hit the ball, even a little bit harder,
be like,
it will break the table.
I want to be.
smear cut.
That's like probably the most, probably the hardest part.
You did it. Yeah, so do that. Do it again. Boom.
Oh!
Nice, so nice. Show me. Savage. I don't know. I think. Five, four, one.
That's why you need Yeah, you
You're
have
after me.
You're after Bill.
You're after me. Come on, that was so good. That was over the top. Stop.
Oh my god. Remember last time? That was last time. It almost not. This is the last I got jeans.
The only thing you need to do different is use your hand like you do. The other hand to hit the snare.
Dang, oh my gosh. You're bad.
I'm good.
He's about to be biting sometime. I think that I gotta do the cross route.
Professional.
Bye.
Bam. Oh wait. Really good. The bean power. The bean Illuminati. Yeah, he was like this and it was like.
That's like how you
Oh my gosh, you're
Apparently that's where everything happens.
Are you out? Okay, we just said pizza cubes. I shot. What's your shot?
Your shot. Hit the ball. I want to stay away from this. Alex, come on. Yay. Come on, Mike. Come on, Mike. Come on. Hit the ball.
Yes!
Yes. That was on. Realize this now. That's easy.
4. It says 1 by 1.
Oh, that's
Or right now.
No.
Okay, I'll go first.
I'll go second.
White ball. And I'm
Get the ball.
white ball. Death ball. The only way to lose is if you lose enough. Oh, let's use that one. That was probably one of the best sports. Death Pong is probably Death Pong is the best.
No, mine is
Eat the tart was very good. Eat the tart was very good. Well, like, you bounce the ping pong ball, and you're like, wait, what? We didn't even.
Now we're gonna finish this.
Hey, Kim just born a minute ago.
Shut up.
I go first.
Congratulations!
He goes first.
Congratulations on
Then
your-
No, it's in me. It's in your house.
No, you don't.
I want to get a day.
Logan, Nate.
Wait, what? No, we do it in order of the Luna.
No, me, Logan.
He was second. I was second. No, sir, no. Before.
No, I'm good.
Do it.
There's more you lost.
What you had?
I'm good.
I know I did.
Why?
This week?
I think so. Danielle,
Fine,
have
I'm
to
fourth.
say-
Hurry up, guys.
Come on. Put it on the map. Put it on the map.
Extra day last year and he's gonna miss it again today.
Serious? Everyone's sick. I just know. Everyone hates. I'm so lucky. I never get sick.
I was 16 weeks ago.
I never get sick. I love my life. Oh, it's snide.
Give me that.
Our turn, Nate.
Adam's turn, dude.
You hit it.
You hit it.
You hit it.
No, he did. He missed.
You hit it.
It's your turn now, Alex.
Saying the lady I you're like, wait, the ball's on the table. Oh my gosh.
Stop flicking the ball.
Just keep playing. Come on.
Excuse me.
It worked every time. I love it.
Dude, I learned that. App.
I don't know.
Tomorrow night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's super good.
I remember that. It's like
One, two, and
every time I have seen Caleb running around with ice cream. Again, you always get your ice cream can.
No, give me that.
Feel.
Feel the ball.
I know. The dab shot always works.
Logan, help me out, help me out.
Oh, dang. Boy. I'm gonna need CR. I'm gonna die.
Come on.
I'll carry you. I'll do a 1 minute.
You'll carry me out and then you'll drop me down the stairs.
On purpose, I'll write you down.
Like a sled.
Yeah.
Except you.
I learned to do game. Ride the Logan down the stairs.
Ride the Logan down the stairs!
Oh.
You know what? It's just your idea. That's all to lack. I just see what you do. You don't see what I do. I do nothing. You don't have to see what I do. Wait, jab shot.
Oh, you can't do a down shot like me.
Backwards dab.
You hit a table. No, the white ball doesn't count as for anything.
Hurry up.
Okay.
Alright, everybody grab a Bible, grab a white chair!
Let's just say I won.
Out. I win. Come on now.
Lulu,
I think we will use the sound system.
Lulu, come here. I
Damn.
I got you.
I cherish all. Okay then.
Is this chair taken?
That's okay.
The card?
But
Take
the chairs for the.
This is shameful. We have no more chairs and no more stools.
Get us.
There's
Okay.
one law there.
There's one right there.
There's one
You
right
got
there.
this.
Hunter.
He needs his muffin.
You need your muffin.
Keys, guys. Just calm down.
I'm sorry.
Take the muffin already.
I need my muffin.
Yeah, muffins are mandatory.
Mandatory. Just do the best we can.
Everyone must eat muffins.
So true.
Yeah, I'm fine.
No.
Reading lips.
Well,
That would be great.
Do you guys need a third mic?
no.
Yes.
We got.
I need a
Oh,
third
what are you
mic.
plugged into?
Sonia
Brown.
is in
Brown.
round 2.
Okay, and the guitar is purple?
The guitar, yeah.
Yeah, purple.
Isaac.
Yes.
I can use it.
I do.
Go get your own muffin. I have to close my eyes. Muffin. Amazing Grace.
We're doing Our God. Welcome everybody to church. Let's pray real quick and we'll get started with worship. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time to gather before you, lift your name high. I pray that you just pour out your spirit upon this place and this time. In your name, amen. What? Water you turn. Water you turned into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you. None like you. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. None like you. Our God's greater. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer. Awesome in power. Our God. Our God. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. None like you. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer. Awesome in power. Our God. Our God. Why don't we go ahead and stand for this song? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? What could stand against? Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer. Awesome in power. Our God. can all be seated if you wish, or you can remain standing if you. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was grace that taught my heart to feel, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear. The I first believed. Many dangerous souls and snares I have already known. His grace that taught my heart thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. And when we first begun. Heavenly Father, we thank you for such a wonderful day to worship you. Thank you for your grace, accepting our praise even when it's kind of weird. I pray that you just bless this time here. In your name, amen.
Alrighty, if you have a Bible, open it up to Mark chapter 6. If you don't have a Bible, time to get one off the shelf.
Wait, what did he actually say?
Kind of.
He was playing.
No more Bibles.
Yeah. Hey, if you guys have a telephone of any kind, please place it into the blue bucket
What
right
if
here.
we have,
If you can get it in the bucket, I'll take it.
If you could get it in the bucket.
Whoa, wow.
Dad, you can't do that. That's cheating.
Wow.
Dad, that's so cheating.
What is it cheating? I don't know what you're talking about.
Did you put mine in the bucket?
Yeah.
He showed
Sure.
him on the bottom. That's cheating.
teaching from
Emily,
anywhere at
do you
once.
recall if we still have a large print NLT?
Someone ripped
I know we had one.
Mark chapter 4.
It's like a brown one.
Unprofessional.
Brown and like this big.
Daniel.
We'll see if we can.
Daniel.
Would like a phone
thought you
with a
said-
font size phone?
He's got my Bible.
Would like a phone with a big font work? I will.
Yeah.
There's no way.
He's a bit of piece out
Use
my
how many phones? It's gonna go like a phone drive.
Yeah.
He's still up on he put it
Heck yes. Ask her if that's big enough. You can always turn the brightness up to make it dim.
we go back.
It's still, you have to always finish.
Well, if you just
Okay, that sounds silly.
First night was Friday.
Alright.
You have a chance to win your
I can win my own prize?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have to give us.
That sounds like robbing children. I'm not
He
into
could
that.
literally just buy one. He could just take one. It's technically his.
That's not exactly how it works, but we'll go with it. I like it. Alright. If you're in your Bible at Mark chapter 6, do note we're not starting at verse 1, we're starting at verse 14 because we did the first 13 verses last week.
Oh, I skipped like. I
So
wasn't here for a
last
while,
week
so-
we were in chapter 6 and we looked at Jesus going back to his own hometown.
Great.
You got something, it's worth saying to everybody, you can raise your hand. Just shouting it out doesn't help because then there's two people talking at once. No one knows what either one said. It's terrible. Last week we saw Jesus go back to his own hometown. He tried preaching there. He did a few small miracles, but nobody believed. The problem was they all knew him as a kid before he started his public ministry. They all knew him before he was doing miracles. They all knew him when he was actually kind of fitting in a sense. And so when they saw him working miracles and they heard him teaching ridiculous and amazing things, instead of saying, obviously what he says is true, they said, we can't figure it out. How did he go from this to that? How did he move from normal to Son of God? He couldn't be the Son of God. There's no way. I've met his dad. His name was Joseph. He was a carpenter. Not only that, but they actually knew Jesus back when he was a carpenter. That would be kind of hard to wrap your brain around, I can imagine. Like, what was God's day job before he made the universe?
He was a carpenter.
Wouldn't that be a strange thought? And they actually knew him back then. So they couldn't do it. They couldn't. And so Jesus took the moment, he took the time in his own hometown as an example to teach his disciples. So he leaves his own hometown, and then he tells his disciples. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to have you guys pair off, go from town to town to town, and if you hit a town and they accept and they listen and they want to hear you teach about the gospel, then teach them. Tell them. Bring them what you got. Give them a miracle if that's what they need. If they need healing or a demon cast out, do it for them. Awesome. And then go to the next town.
I thought you were talking to us, I'm like,
I call Asia.
All the
What?
streets. Why not, Maya? Why not?
I call Islam.
I'm too young. Further out of the world.
So
going to Europe.
then he says one more thing. If they, Johnny, stop, Johnny, stop. If they say no, if they don't listen, if they reject you, if they don't want to learn about the gospel, then just leave. Don't fight them. Don't argue. Don't mess with them. Don't sit there and have a debate. Make sure they heard you, and then say, okay, your soul's in your own hands. It could be in God's hands, but instead, it's going to stay in your hands. And I did tell you, I did let you know, I made sure you got to hear, but I got to go on. I got to go to the next town. And so they leave. And he says, go so far as to give them something to remember. Kick the dust off your sandals as you leave. It's up to you guys. So that's what Jesus told them. That was their responsibility. Not to force people to believe, not to stay there until they believe, not to make them believe, but to give them the opportunity to believe. Give them the chance. And then move on. Because if you stayed there, if you stuck there, if you lasted in one place too long, fighting against people, you'd never get on to the next town. And then less people would get to hear. And Jesus knew that. And so even in his own hometown, he said, okay, well, they got to hear. Now we move on. We go to the next one. Now we're going to switch gears entirely. Mark is quite clever in how he does this. We'll read the first 2 verses and you guys will see. He connects this whole Jesus story, where every single chapter, every single paragraph is about Jesus. He connects it to a completely different set of characters. Rather quickly, rather cleverly. So we're going to have you two on the far left read the first 2 verses we're reading today, so it'll be 14 and 15, okay?
Let's take an hour.
He's pretty excited about this, you can tell. He could not wait.
Oh boy.
He's starting to realize upon week 3 he shouldn't sit in the far left seat.
I should.
You're just gonna start trading.
You know, if you move to the far right seat, you know what you're going to do, right? I'm just going to start on the right that day.
Alright.
Verse 14. Read along with us.
Harold of
No, not Harold. That's a different guy.
Confused.
It's Herod.
Herod,
You were close. Antipas.
Antipas. The king soon heard about Jesus because everyone was talking about him. Some were saying this must be John the Baptist, raised from the dead. That's why he can do such miracles.
Others said he's the prophet Elijah. Still others said he's a prophet like the other great prophets of the past.
Okay. Now there's 2 big giant things here. They both were different things about Jesus being said, and they both were wrong, but it's actually kind of hilarious how wrong they are. So, does anyone know what's wrong with him being John the Baptist? Well, okay, but could you name some of those? You're not wrong. Yeah, Logan.
He's not.
Any others, perhaps? Alex.
John the Baptist is dead.
John the Baptist is dead.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, isn't that weird though? Think about this for a second. If you're reading Mark for the first time and you haven't heard the whole story before, he doesn't tell you that Mark is dead. He says maybe this guy who's not John is John raised from the dead. So the way you find out that Mark died in the Gospel of Mark, if that's the one you're reading, because it was actually the first Gospel written, it's the very, very first one. If you're reading through here, you're going, wait, he died? Because it never said that. In the first chapter, you've got John as a living character. He's alive back in chapter 1. And then you don't really mention Mark for 5 chapters. And then all of a sudden, the next time you mention him, you say, raised from the dead.
He's dead.
He's dead? I didn't know he was dead. Did you know he was dead? That's kind of weird. But the other reason that's weird is because Jesus and John were cousins.
R.I.P.
And they met. Now, you can't be a guy that you meet. Doesn't work.
I was just
Not to mention, they met at least once in public in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you can't be like.
You can't be in 2 places at once. You
Yeah.
certainly can't be 3
And
feet apart at
If
once.
if one of the people
That's
that was
called-
if one of the
that's
people
called
that was
decapitation.
saying that he was John met John, that'd just be even dumber.
It makes no sense. You can't put on a disguise and then shake your own hand.
Yeah, you can't shake your.
It doesn't work.
Well, I mean, unless you go.
Well, actually, it'd be even harder than that, because that would mean Jesus was really good at limbo. Because actually, John the Baptist baptized Jesus. And if he was both people, then that means Jesus is doing the limbo in and out of the water, which
Child
is
abuse.
it's just
He
amazing.
just goes out and he's talking
Well,
there.
Daniel.
So,
Daniel, you're
they
wrong.
thought he was John the Baptist.
You can't
That's
shake your
crazy.
hand. You can't
We
shake
find
your
out we find out John the Baptist was dead. That's crazy. This gets even weirder though, because they said, this explains how Jesus was able to do miracles. No, wait a second, guys. It doesn't explain anything about that. Because A, John the Baptist, when he was alive, never did any miracles.
The fact that he ate
So if
locusts
Jesus
and
really
honey.
was John in disguise, like, that wouldn't help explain
Child
the fact that he can do miracles. Because that would mean a guy who didn't do miracles died, rose from the dead with miracle powers now. So he's like John plus magic powers.
John 2.0.
None of this makes sense. This is completely, I don't know, crazy seems like a soft word for it. This is wild. This is ridiculous. Insane, yes. Well, crazy and insane might be synonyms. I don't know. I'm losing touch. Then they say, maybe he's a prophet like Elijah. Okay, now, I know I'm stretching you here. Go through every prophet you can think of in the Old Testament. Okay? How many of them draw a striking resemblance to Jesus? How many of the Old Testament prophets stood around teaching, and anybody who came to them who was sick, he would heal?
16.
Which ones? Or how about this? Name one. Is that easier? There was no Old Testament prophets that just stood around healing everybody who came up to them. In fact, the Old Testament prophets healed people so rarely, it warranted making a big, giant story out of it. It was usually like a once-in-a-lifetime thing for an Old Testament prophet to heal someone. It certainly didn't happen often that they brought people back from the dead. That was exceptionally rare. Not even all the prophets got to do that. On top of that, not all the prophets ever worked miracles. A lot of the prophets, the only thing they ever did was take a message from God, write it down, and bring it to people. And that's it. That was the whole I'm a prophet job. The prophets that worked miracles were rare. They weren't the common ones. Yeah.
Sometimes they rose people from the dead.
They wrote to people from the dead? Or they rose people from the dead?
Elijah and Elisha.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But that wasn't even all the prophets. That was only like certain prophets. That's weird. Like, Moses, amazing guy, worked crazy big miracles. Don't recall him ever bringing anyone back from the dead. So to say Jesus was like the Old Testament prophets is kind of like saying Superman is a lot like firefighters.
Noah did a
Maybe
miracle.
Superman is a firefighter.
Noah did a miracle. He built a humongous boat.
I guess you call it a
Didn't
miracle.
die.
I certainly couldn't
It
pull
didn't
it
fall
off.
off.
Do you get my point, though? I've seen Superman put out fires, and I've seen firefighters put out fires.
I've seen Superman shoot.
So maybe
lasers.
Superman's a firefighter.
That
That's
makes
what it's
no
like
sense.
when you say Jesus is probably just a prophet. He did do, a lot of those things that the prophets did, a few here and there. Sure. But Jesus didn't match up with them. He didn't bear a striking resemblance to them. He wasn't writing any books either. When he taught, he brought up new stuff, which is pretty cool. He didn't lean on the old stuff that often. He was different. But the reason all of this gets introduced in the book of Mark is to get us back on John the Baptist for 5 minutes. So, let's keep reading. We're going to talk more about Herod. This is a different Herod than the one who tried to get Jesus killed as a baby. It's kind of a family
Isn't
name.
it his son?
Yeah. So it's a family name. Like Herod Sr. tried to kill Jesus when he was little.
Or Herod
now-
600.
And now like Herod Jr.
601.
is sitting on the same
No,
throne.
Herod
What about the
600.
person in Harry Potter?
There is no amount of 3 people talking that is going to help us. Doesn't matter how much more people you add to it. All right, so if you have something worthwhile, again, raise your hand. It's not some new wild concept you've never heard of before. I know. All right, so verse 16 in the back. And you got to remind me, what was your name again?
Ian.
Ian. Okay, sorry. Ian's new. Ian, read us verse 16.
When Herod heard about Jesus, he said, "John, the man I beheaded, has come back from the dead."
So he's scared. And then 17. We get to kind of hear the story now of how this all went down.
For Herod had sent soldiers to arrest and imprison John as a favor to
Herodias.
Herodias. She had been his brother Philip's wife, but Herod had married her.
Okay, time out. Gotta understand this whole eus at the end of Herod is kind of like we would do nowadays. We would put et at the end of a name. Like if we're making a joke, and I said that I named all my kids after me. My name is Jim, this is my son Jim, this is my son Jim, and this is my daughter Jimette. That would kind of sink in, right? The joke works. Back then, if I was making that joke, it'd be like, my name is Herod, and this is my son Herod, and this is my other son Herod, and this is my daughter Herodias. That would be how you would do the joke. So I kid you not, King Herod had a brother Philip who had a wife named Herodias. And Herod wanted Herodias so bad, and he was king, he just took her.
Oh, God.
Yeah, not like Philip, poor Philip, he died, and I will look after his widow.
No.
Not like Herodias and Philip got a divorce, and Herod's like, would you marry me? I'm king. It wasn't like that. It was like Herod went to Herodias and said, well, you can be queen if you want. And she was like, okay, I like that. And then they got married.
I'm sorry, I ditched you.
But the old marriage wasn't over in any sort of real or legal sense.
Okay.
It was just, now she's his. Not great on any count. Not great. Okay.
You, brother.
So, then we get to verse 18, which was... Caleb has 18.
John had been telling Herod it is against God's law for you to marry your brother's wife.
So
19 to Alex.
okay. So Herodias bore a grudge against John and wanted to kill him, but without Herod's approval, she was powerless.
So Herod doesn't actually want to kill John, even though John's talking out against their wedding. Interesting stuff. Right. 20 up here in front.
For Herod respected John, and knowing that he was a good and holy man, he protected him. Herod was greatly disturbed whenever he talked with John, but even so, he liked to listen to him.
Crazy pants. Okay. This is right here a lesson for us in the modern day, all on its own. What is John doing that Herod respects?
Everything.
Wow, that you're not wrong. But specifically, right here in this one little part. He's what? He's pretty smart. There's more to it than that. There's an action involved, not just a character trait. Yes?
Like being godly.
Yeah. That I'm not even kidding. That's it. He's living in a godly way. So this is interesting. When he's living in a godly way, he's living a godly life, he's doing what God wants, and then he says something like, this is what's right, this is what's wrong. Instead of Herod hating him, Herod respects him.
He sees the power of God in John.
Yeah. Can you imagine, though, if John the Baptist was just like totally living it up worldly, like total drunkard, just like going and blowing out all of his money, doing whatever he wants. He doesn't listen to God. He doesn't do it. And then he says to the king, it's wrong for you to marry your brother's wife in his burping, drunken state. Would there be much respect there?
Oh, yes.
I don't think there would be. But it would be the same statement. Right? He's saying the same thing. Some staggering drunk says it's wrong to marry your brother's wife. He's not wrong. He's still telling the truth. But then a godly man who's living correctly, he does what's right, tells you it's wrong to marry your brother's wife. They're both saying the same thing. The difference came from everything, as Maya put it. What was he doing that made him respect him? Everything else. The statement, you should not marry your brother's wife, I don't think was all it was that got the respect. I think it was a large part of it, though, because if you look at Herod, you look at all the little stories, because we get like a lot of little looks at Herod, little glimpses here and there. If you put together all the pieces we know about Herod, I kind of get this picture of a total stereotype king. This total fat, gets what he wants, lazy on his throne king. From all the stories, not just this one. This one doesn't give you all the details. You put them all together, and that's what I see. And it seems like it's a family business to be the get what you want, sit on the throne king. Because that's the way his dad was, that's the way his son ends up. It's not a very healthy throne, as it turns out. And so Herod, not living in a healthy way, not making good decisions. And when someone finally says, that's bad, it makes me think that no one else was saying it. Can you kind of imagine that? Does anyone here have parents that would tell you if you're doing something really wrong? Can you imagine what it would be like? Maybe you have friends, and you do know what it's like. Can you imagine what it would be like if your parents just didn't care?
No.
And they let you do whatever you wanted, no matter how bad or wrong it was. And they never stopped you. They never warned you. They never told you what was right, let alone what was wrong. Just you doing whatever you felt like.
I hate that.
I'd be lit.
Parents do that.
Yes. Some kids are like, hey,
Yes,
I
I
get to do whatever I want.
Some of us have had friends or have friends that are still like that, and their parents just let them do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But most of us, when we think that, you got to realize there's probably a limit in that family where the parent would say no. It's just a different limit from where your family has it. I'm talking about Herod being the king, and he has no mommy and no daddy telling him, you're being very bad right now. He's the king. And most people around him are thinking, if I tell him no, he'll kill me. I don't know how true that is, but that's what they're thinking. And so when he says something stupid, everyone just goes, yes, sir, right away, sir, of course, sir. That warps
I
you.
will go get you 6 Pepsis.
That warps you. It breaks you. You guys have heard the term a spoiled little brat. Yeah. Do you guys know what the word spoiled actually means? What does spoiled mean?
Overdate old, gross. Like, kind of like overused, like, yeah, like spoiled milk, or like, it's just like, I'm trying to figure out, like, the term.
Okay.
It's like
It's
over.
gone bad
Yeah.
because you left it alone.
Oh.
That's true for the food, it's true for the kid. Do you understand?
Is that you?
Who is it?
Oh.
Is it a real name?
Got him.
Call it.
Answer it.
Hello?
Imagine David calling me.
Got him.
That's quite sad.
We'll never get any real calls. I'm sorry.
That wasn't nearly as embarrassing as I wanted it to be. Oh, we should move that outside.
His phone.
There's this little switch on the side, and it turns orange
Yes.
when you push the switch down. You guys know about this?
I use it all the time. That's why
It's gotta have like a long fingernail for that case.
Someone's
Alright.
gonna remix that.
You just switch it to silent before you put it in the bucket.
Remember when you talked to Owen?
Someone actually has me to remix it on my phone.
That was hilarious.
That's what I hope for. I dream about that.
Alright.
Alright.
You should start
So, one character we've left out so far, pretty much, is Herodias. Herodias, who has like the same name as Herod, basically. It's,
But with Ian.
it's Herodias the girl. Or sorry, Herod the girl. Like, that's what her name means. She marries Herod. She goes along with this, and based on, again, everything we know, not only from this story, but other stories too, we know somewhat that she fits another stereotype. She's the person who wants to get power at any cost. So she switches husbands to get more power. And now there's a guy who's saying it was wrong to do that. And John the Baptist is a public guy. He's not some private, say it to his friend kind of guy. This guy teaches to thousands daily. So if Herod goes out to the river to hear John teach, and Herod gets yelled at from the river, it was wrong to marry your brother's wife, then it's not just Herod who hears it, right? That's like a lot of people hearing that. And so Herodias is steamed. Herodias does not like John, because everyone else already knew it was wrong, but no one was saying it to thousands of people. And so, yeah, John got arrested. John's living in the dungeon now. And then we get to verse 21. Who left
How
off?
happy.
Did Logan get to read? Go for it, Logan. Verse 21.
Daniel, wait.
What?
Maya is kind of a girl name for Jeremiah.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's like the girl name for Jeremiah.
I never really thought about it.
That.
My dad's a really good at mine.
Go for it.
Herodias' chance.
Sorry, guys. Logan's going to read 21. Go for it.
Herodias' chance finally came on Herod's birthday. He gave a party to his high government officials, army officers, and the leading citizens of Galilee.
Okay. And then 22 up front. We're just going to kind of zigzag, if that makes sense, to catch the people in the back row. So you got 22.
Okay. Then his daughter, also named Herodias, came and performed a dance that greatly pleased Herod and his guests. Ask me anything you would like, the king said to the girl, and I will give it to you.
23.
He even vowed. I will give you whatever you ask, up to half my kingdom.
No, we're going to see here that the girl is not stupid. She's not going to ask for Bud Light or filet mignon.
Daniel.
Yeah, no, I know. But you say these things in the middle of something. That's where the joke goes.
Daniel, I was actually I watched a Christian video there. I forget what the like company is called, but it's like they make a line of like Christian videos and like educational videos.
Cartoons and things.
Yeah. And I was watching this one, and I remember watching this part, and Herod's wife like convinced the daughter to ask
before.
Well, then now you're just spoiling what we're about to read.
Spoil alert!
Yeah.
You're not wrong, Maya, but timing.
Wait, Maya's not. Whoa.
All right, so
Jeez, that's
now if you promise anyone half your kingdom, and you're not gonna get something better than half your kingdom, I think you might be drunk. And he's having a party. I'm guessing he might be drunk. Because honestly, I don't care what your dance was. It could be the coolest dance in the whole wide world. You don't trade a dance for half a kingdom. No. That would never happen. No one's that dumb, but a lot of people are that
What
drunk.
about this dance?
So, that's my guess. I don't know. But she's not dumb. She runs off. Hannah, I think you've got, did I do that right?
24.
24.
So she went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask?" And she said, "The head of John the Baptist."
And then 25 to Johnny.
So the girl hurried back to the king and told him, "I want the head of John the Baptist right now on a tray."
Now that was where I know she's actually a smart girl. Because if she asked for the head of John the Baptist the way her mom said it, I would like the head of John the Baptist. Then all the king has to do is say, okay, it comes with a body. Or, okay, in 30 years, you can have his head when he's already dead anyways. He could have done all kinds of things to wiggle out of it, but she added to the request right now and on a platter.
I would have asked her.
So left arm. Not really sure that would kill him. The whole point was to kill him. That was the point.
Daniel.
He didn't say I'll do anything. He says ask for anything and I'll give it to you.
Daniel.
So they're trying to twist his words. They're trying to twist his words to go from a gift into an action. You can't get his head on a platter without taking it off the body first.
No, that's not true.
It is, because cutting the hole in the
You cut a hole in
platter
the platter, put
is
it
not
on his shoulders.
on. That's
Technically
in a
on the
platter.
platter.
No, you're in a platter. You're wearing a platter.
Oh, wait, here's the real question.
All right.
Lay on the platter.
Now we already know John the Baptist is dead. We got that out of verse 1 that we read, or verse 14, the first one we read today. So we already know he's going to die. We're not trying to learn something about his death here. We know he's going to die. What we're trying to learn is what God wants us to see in this story. Why did he include this? What is the point of this? Well, mom says, go do something bad. Daughter says, okay. Dad makes a terrible promise. And watch what happens when he hears the result. When he hears what's going to be asked of him, he could have put his foot down. He could have just said, no, I didn't say do whatever you want. I said I'll give you whatever you want. Taking someone's life is clearly an action. You're twisting my words. This isn't fair. He could have said all kinds of things.
This is the king.
But and he's the king, and he can have her killed, and he can do whatever he wants. But his friends are watching. That's all it takes. Connie, you have a Bible on yet? Okay, Trinity. Trinity, you've got verse 26.
Then the king deeply regretted.
Trinity's reading. Try and give her some respect.
Then the king deeply regretted what he had said, but because of the vows he had made in front of his guests, he could not refuse her.
27 to Maya.
So he immediately sent the
Executioner
to prison to cut John's head off and bring it to the
to him.
The soldier beheaded John in the prison.
Verse 28.
Brought his head on a tray and gave it to the girl who took it to her mother.
And then you get the last verse? Yes.
When John's disciples heard of what happened, they came to get the body and buried it in the tomb.
Okay. So, as I said, we aren't trying to learn about the death. We're trying to learn something from all this nonsense. And we get a pretty clear picture here of Herod. Seems like he has all the power, but he's given up all the power. He put himself in a situation where his friends were watching and he carried what his friends thought. And so even though he had all the power, he gave up the power. And then Herodias is someone who literally says, I don't like you, so therefore I want you to die. And she means it. This is not an exaggeration like, I wish he were dead. No, she is trying to find a way to kill him.
Great.
Just because he said it's not good to marry your brother's wife.
There's something very wrong in a family structure where everything is so about dad that the wife's name is the dad's name and the kid's name is the dad's name. That's just, you've gone too far. I don't think I can handle it. I could never have married a woman who was named Danielle.
Why?
My name is Daniel. That's just too weird. I couldn't.
My dad has
Every
a friend-
day of my life, I'd be reminded me and my wife have basically the same name.
My dad had a friend whose
But
name
then-
was Michael, and he married a lady named Michelle.
Daniel marries Danielle, and then they have a kid and name her Danielle. Like,
No, they name her Danny. Hey, my sister's name is
no!
Danielle. My sister's name is
But your dad's name's not Daniel, and your mom's name's not Danielle.
My dad
So
had
your
a friend
daughter,
whose
your
name
sister being named Danielle is totally fine.
My dad had a friend whose name was Michael, and he married a woman named Michelle, and then they had a child named
You're messing.
Steve.
Steve, that'd be great. Now that's a joke. All right. The point here is the family's not well. The wife is trying to find a way to kill a guy that the husband respects.
and that has never done anything wrong other than make her a little bit mad.
Well, and on top of that, it seems like Herod might actually know about this. It seems like he might actually know that Herodias wants John dead. Because it says that the only reason she couldn't was because Herod was stopping her. So that means Herod is aware of the fact that his wife wants to kill a man. Just goes on with life, that's normal,
You should have
right?
specified not what your mother wants, what you.
That's like way out number 3. There's like a nearly infinite list of ways out of killing a man. You didn't have to do this, Herod. You didn't have to do this. But here's the point. Herod did the easy thing in that situation. He didn't have to hold the axe that sliced off the head. He didn't have to handle the platter. He didn't have to
Probably
do
too fat to move.
any of the hard stuff. All he had to do was give in to what his friends wanted. Or at least, and this is the stupidest part, what he thought his friends wanted.
Yeah.
It wasn't even necessarily what his friends wanted. He didn't take a poll. Is anyone here going to be upset if I have John? He didn't do that. So this is just blind doing what I think the crowd
It's an inference.
wants. Yeah, it is actually. Good word.
I was just learning about inferences in school.
Nice. All right. Then we take 500 steps back and we find ourselves with John the Baptist. John the Baptist, cool guy, listens to God. He preaches. He preaches the truth. He preaches the truth even when people don't like hearing the truth. He preaches so much truth that it gets him arrested. And then after he's arrested, he doesn't stop preaching the truth. You'd think if anything would scare you away from preaching, it'd be getting arrested for preaching. I think that'd scare most people. I don't know about you guys, but if you heard about a church where the pastor got arrested and sent to jail, you'd probably think, I'm not going to that church. Like, obviously the pastor was doing something really bad. What if he was just preaching? We live in a country that's not normal. But there are actually countries present day on the planet where, yeah, actually, that's normal. You could get arrested and sent to prison just for preaching. What would you think then?
I'm not going to that country.
I'm going.
Well, then there's one of two thoughts. Either you think exactly what most Americans think of, oh, well, they must have been doing something wrong. Or you think of thought number 2, well, I don't want to get arrested. So therefore, I'm not going to that church.
Wait, what about number 3? Let's do this.
I like that one better. That's kind of John's thinking. He gets thrown in prison. He went from preaching to thousands, and if Herod shows up, he mentions something to Herod, to being in prison, and my guess is that he only got out when when Herod wanted to hear him teach again. And then you kind of have a private audience. There's no one else to tell that they're doing wrong stuff. It's just you and Herod at that point. Do you think he stopped? Do you think he decided, well, I'm not going to tell him today? Herod was still married to his brother's wife. Jerk. So I don't think he said that precise word, but I think he would have still said the same truth. Herod, did you give back your fake wife yet?
No.
Herod's like, no. And John says, you know it's wrong to be married to your brother's wife? Yeah. All right, I'll see you next Tuesday. I don't actually know how it went.
No, that's exactly how it went.
But Herodias' grudge didn't go away as he stayed in jail. That's one of my main reasons for thinking they kept on talking. Because apparently her grudge was given some fresh fuel every so often. But this is kind of the balance here. This is the comparison I want you guys to see. John the Baptist preaches, loses all his freedom, all of his friends. It usually happens when you go to prison. And then he keeps on preaching. Herod isn't really sure he likes John or not, but he respects him because he tells him the truth and he lives a godly life to back up that truth. And when given a situation where he's going to look bad in front of his friends, he immediately says, okay, let's kill a man. Now, these might not sound like things you'll have the opportunity to do.
Yay.
Which is probably good. But look at the bare essentials of each of these situations, okay? In the one situation, there's a man talking about God, even though it's going to damage his life. Either in small ways or large ways. In the other situation, there's a man who's concerned about what people think about him. And that is the driving force behind his decisions. All right, we've broken it down. Now I have to ask, what do you guys think you might say is the biggest reason you don't share Jesus with every single person you meet?
If you share with too many people, there might be a crowd and he'd be chased all around the world.
What?
Huh?
No, you.
Am I the only one who didn't get that?
Say off
Try again. I'm not sure we followed.
Tell enough people, there's going to be a horde of them wanting for him to do miracles.
Okay, I wasn't talking about all those other people. I was talking about you, Johnny. Johnny, what would you say is the number one reason you aren't telling every single person you meet about Jesus?
Because it's not their business.
Wait,
Interesting.
Why they were created.
It is their business.
All right.
Major.
Any other answers?
Internet.
Yeah, Caleb.
Maybe because they wouldn't want to hear it.
Okay. So a politeness.
Wait.
Interesting.
Like if you go up to them and you're like,
Hey guys, I called on Caleb. I didn't call on any of you guys else right now. Just him. Sorry.
if you like go up to them and say, hey, want to hear about God? And they're like, nope. And walk away and don't want to do anything about it.
Okay. Any other reasons? Yeah.
No, it's okay. She
Oh no, I'm calling both of you guys. I'm not gonna cut her out.
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's okay.
We have a polite off here.
Okay.
You're not Canadian, are you?
Maybe because like you're afraid that they won't want to be friends with you anymore because you believe in something that they don't believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have an answer? Go ahead.
Some people who already have a religion might want to stick to that religion, so they and they want to believe that religion is real, so they will not. So like they have, your words will fall on deaf ears.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually what happens. I have a friend who is, Jehovah's Witness, and I don't want to tell her about like God and Jesus because I don't want her to like get mad and think I'm trying to like change her religion or make her mad.
Okay. All right. So this is the choice. Do we make them happy, or do we tell them the truth?
Tell them the truth. Big fat juice
As similar as these things sound, as small a decision as this sounds like sometimes, where it's like, oh well, I want to keep the friend, you know, or I don't want to.
Bless you.
Bless you!
Or in your example, I almost don't even want to inconvenience them. This isn't what they were hoping for today. They weren't getting up in the morning today hoping that some Christian would come talk to them out of the blue. I don't want to get in their way. What if they already have a religion they're perfectly happy with? In each of those situations, what we're doing is we're taking their feelings in a moment and putting that up as a higher, more important thing than what happens to them in eternity. Does that make sense? We're taking something small and we're making it more important than something big. In Herod's instance, he was taking what he thought were the opinions and feelings of some people in the room and saying that was more important than the life of a man that he was going to sentence to death. Do you see the imbalance there? And so this is what's so sad is we're picking moment by moment, as we refuse to talk to people, moment by moment where we just think, well, it's not polite to do it right now. We're taking something small that is important in some small way, and we're saying, this is now far more important than something that's actually the most important. Does that make sense? We're choosing to be like Herod instead of choosing to be like John. That's the choice. And there's a problem with that. When you spoil a kid, we talked about that word earlier, spoil. You don't do it consciously, actively. I really hope they can grow up and just be the brattiest brat that ever bratted. I just want this obnoxious kid. That's what I'm hoping for. No one does that. No one thinks, if they could just end up with no real friends in life and everyone hates them, I've done good as a parent. Awesome. No one thinks that. And likewise, no one has food at home. Your parents that they're leaving. Well, maybe if you're destructive by nature, no one usually puts food at home under a little petri dish and just goes, "I'm never gonna touch it. I'm never gonna eat it. I just want to watch this food go bad." Most people don't do that. Most people open the fridge one day, reach behind that thing, and they look at the other thing and they go, "Oh, I was gonna eat that. Stupid mold." And then they throw it away, and they're either all mad at the mold or they're disappointed. Like, that was really good. It doesn't come from like an active, I'm trying to mess things up. It comes from neglect. It comes from neglect. It comes from, I didn't do anything when the time was right. I didn't do it quick enough. I didn't act on the moment. And this is the sad truth, is that if we try and keep our friends by not telling about Jesus, we may keep them short term, but eventually everything goes bad in this world. This life is not eternal. This life, this one we have right now, this one's ending. We have a few more years, probably, but it's going to end. And then what? To answer the people who have another religion, is their religion following the only God that exists?
I don't know if Jehovah's Witnesses.
That's a really good point. If your friends follow a religion you don't understand, you should do some research. You have a personal incentive now.
I know that all I know is that they believe in Jesus, but I think I'm pretty sure it's the Jehovah's Witnesses that just believe he was another really, 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 really good prophet.
You know about the most important 1% about Jehovah's Witnesses now. You're right, but there's a lot more to know.
Yeah.
So one of the things to look into is, does she believe that, or is she just a kid who goes to church with her parents? Talk to her about that. That's not very confrontational. That's just personal. Is she into Jehovah's Witness as a religion and she totally believes it? She's way into it. She's all about that. Or she goes there when her parents go there.
I just don't feel comfortable asking. It's just weird saying, "Hey, do you just go with your parents to church because they tell you to, or do you just like?"
It'd be weird if you did feel comfortable about that. No one feels comfortable about that. But that's actually the point.
I feel comfortable.
You don't feel totally comfortable about that?
Yeah.
Was your answer like a hypothetical other people answer? Because you gave an answer similar to hers.
I don't know.
Oh, shit. I bring this up, Maya, because it's important. And because this is what we're talking about today. And you gave me a really good example. I don't mean to pick on you. I think this is probably true of most of us, that we have at least one friend we're avoiding talking about God with. If not a lot of friends.
I have 2. They are actually best friends, and they're both Jehovah's Witnesses.
It's hard, isn't it? How often do you think about it?
A lot.
How hard is that?
What?
Thinking about something you're not following through on.
Not very hard.
It's not very hard? It's the easy way out, isn't it? Do you see the parallel back to the story? That's what Herod was doing. He took the easy way out. And the sad thing is, Maya, and I don't mean to get dark, that's going to cost someone their life. Now, to all of you other Mayas in the room,
I'm gonna hide, Daniel.
I've picked on her long enough. You
Scaring
guys,
me.
No, keep going.
All right, Logan. I'll keep going.
Yeah. Get him good.
If you guys don't know, Maya and Logan are brother and sister.
Nate.
That's going too far.
Beat him.
So, Logan, to pick on the older brother for a moment, do you have any friends that are awkwardly following?
No friends.
Where it's a little awkward for you, but they're following another religion and you try not to talk about it?
I'm sorry.
Not really.
Is this in real life or online?
No, this is any life. Any life. First, second, or third. Yes. Any friends like that where, if it came up, it'd be weird, so you try not to let it come up?
I don't really think so.
Okay. Is there any friends where a conversation with God has occurred?
Yes.
Conversation about God?
The last time I did
In any way. Conversation about God.
Actually.
Friends where a conversation about God has occurred?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Is it every single friend?
No, not really.
There's the rub. So, would you know about those friends, whether or not they actually believe in Him, talk to Him, know about Him, read His Word, if you've never talked about God with them at all?
Bless you.
So this is it. Maya and you are in the same boat, even if it sounds different. She is aware of the boat she's in, and you are blindly in that boat.
Oh no.
Does that make sense?
Kidnap.
Child abuse.
Took my words a weird way, but okay. So, and this is the point. I think this counts for each and every one of you guys. This isn't just the ones whose names I've well memorized. I'm bad with names. I happen to.
Bad with my name. You knew
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Maya and Logan are a special case because their parents were my junior high leaders, so I've known them for a while. I haven't known most of you guys that long.
His junior high leader.
I held you when you were.
My mom was Emily.
I took lessons on how to burrito babies from your dad when you were tiny.
Really?
And I kept
Daddy?
it. I memorized it.
Daddy taught you how to make.
Yeah, his dad and me are the same age. We grew up together. And so when he was born, I was around hanging out, and he taught me how to burrito a baby. His dad's name is Caleb. Is the person I'm pointing at.
Oh.
Sorry if that was not clear.
There are 3 people right
I
there.
know.
You know, kind of in the same general
Anyways.
region. What about me, Dan?
I know very few people in your family besides your brother. I mean, and your grandpa. But actually, I knew you and your brother before I knew your grandpa. So. All right. Back on task. The call here is to do the more difficult of the 2 options. To notice when we're picking the easy way out. And the trigger is this. Look for moments where you actually think, what do they think? Look for those moments when you're at school. Look for those moments when you're with your friends. Every time you're thinking, what do they think? How do they feel about this? Why are they thinking about this? Do they like what I'm wearing? Do they think it's cool when I say this thing? Anytime you're having those thoughts, you are already taking the easy way out. You're just acting the way people expect you to act. You're being the way people want you to be. You're saying the things people want you to say. And to be truthful, to be honest, that makes a world of fat kings. Follow me on this. That's what Herod got. Herod cared what other people thought, and probably no one even knew. Because all people were concerned about was saying yes to him and giving him whatever he wanted. And when we spend our lives thinking, oh, I wonder if they'll think this is okay. I don't know. Maybe this is good. Maybe they'll like it. I should act like this. I should talk like this. I should be this way for them so that they'll like me. All we're doing is giving everybody we know a yes. Does that follow? Does that make sense to you guys? We're giving everybody yeses all the time. That spoils them. That's actual neglect. To just give them what they want all the time. To let them have their way. Your joke finally makes sense, by the way. That really is child abuse. If you do that for your friends, you're not being a friend. A real friend is the guy who says, hey, it's wrong when you do that. That's a real friend. Or, I'm not kidding. Like when your mom says you're going to get hurt when you do that, yeah, she's not crazy. That's you. You're crazy. You are going to get hurt when you do that. That's what a real friend says.
What do you mean? I'm not going to say
Not let me put more dynamite on there. Not let me make the jump a little steeper for you. Not let me grease the roof as you climb it. It'd be funny, but it would hurt.
You can slide down it.
Are these things from personal experience?
Maybe. So, Fooling John in these instances is the simple thing, but it's the harder thing. You got to come up with all kinds of lies and buy the right t-shirts and act the right way and learn the new slang if you want to go the easy way. If you want to go the right way, the hard way, you just got to say no sometimes. Actually, no. That's wrong. That's hard. I was reminded just recently, watching someone who really struggles with letting out the wrong words, that it's really hard to control yourself, but it's really easy to catch yourself. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's really hard to stop the wrong thing coming out of your mouth, but you know it's the wrong thing, like right as you say it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is so much easier. You're probably not going to catch yourself before you say it, but you're probably going to catch yourself right after you say it. So this is it. This is the easier way to go. Maybe you say what your friends want to hear, but then maybe you get really good at going, no, wait, don't listen to me, that was wrong. Practice that one. When you exaggerate and you puff something up, you're like, yeah, and when I did this, and I was like, and it was amazing, and then you just go, I'm just kidding, I'm totally lying. I don't know where that came from, I'm wrong.
That happens to me like pretty much every day.
Follow it up. Take your exaggeration and then follow it up with like an apology and a correction. Take your lie and follow it up with the truth. Take your doing what the crowd wants, what the friend says you should do, what everyone thinks is cool, and follow it up with, actually, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. And just say it. Say, actually, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. Practice it with me. Actually, I don't want to do that. That's stupid.
That's stupid. That's el stupido.
Just be honest.
You could just be a friend.
And yes, it's hard to be honest on the first try. We practice being fake too much. But you know when you're being fake. You can feel it. So follow it up with some honesty. And then comes the harder one still. You guys ready for the real secret mission?
No.
The next time you feel like, I can't say that, that'd be too awkward. I can't talk about God in front of this person. Feel it, embrace it, go, yeah, this would be super awkward, and then go, let's do it.
No.
Right? Let's do it. Let's get awkward. Let's say the thing that makes them go, I want to walk away right now.
No.
And let's just feel the awkward and just roll straight through it. Let's go, you know what? They didn't want to hear about God today. That's not why they woke up. That's not why they came here where I'm at right now. They're not at the store so they can hear about God. And then go, I'm going to do it anyways.
Do a barrel roll.
Something simple has a very large effect. I can't claim ownership of this because this is not my personality. This is not how I do. But Justin, you guys know Justin Morris?
Yes.
He's back in town for a season. He had this thing when he was living in the States full time. They would go to the store, they'd go through the checkout, and you're going to stand in front of that cashier for like 5-6 minutes of their life, right? And so he just took it as a challenge. What can I do for them in 5 to 6 minutes?
Torture them by making them watch my latest YouTube video.
You could choose that, but that's not helping them in any measurable way. What could you say to them in 5 to 6 minutes? They know you're going to leave. They know you're going to stop talking in 5 to 6 minutes. So they have an out. They don't have to yell at you to make you leave, right? You're just going to leave. They know this. So if you started an awkward conversation, there's a certain amount of okay about that because you're going to quit in 5 to 6 minutes. What could you fit into that 5 to 6 minutes?
Stare at them.
Not to check them off on your quota. I talked to someone about Jesus today. It's not about you. It's about them. What could you say that would actually help them in 5 to 6 minutes? What could you do? Well, the way Justin figured it out, this is what he came down to. And there's multiple options with this. There's multiple answers that are the correct answer. But his answer was this. He goes through the line, we start it natural. How's your day been? They tell you, or they don't. They lie. They say great. And then you move deeper. You go, is there anything going on big right now? And then they tell you, or they don't. They lie. They say no. And then you go a bit deeper and you say, is there anything I could pray with you about? Now that is an involving question. Is there anything I could pray with you? pray with you about? And most of them will just flat say no. And then you go
That is a no.
past it and you make a promise that leaves the 5-minute zone. And you say, okay, I'll be praying for you anyways then. And then they're like, wait, what?
Okay, see,
No, don't do that. That's gonna go past my 5 minutes. You were supposed to leave. At that point, you start to maybe get something out of them because they realize you're a real human being and you're not just a customer who goes through the line. You've broken the wall down.
You've broken the fifth wall.
Maybe you've broken them. But the awkward has been passed through. And now they realize this is a real situation. I'm in real life now. I'm not pushing customers down my line. I'm talking to a real human being. You can actually start to have a real conversation at that point.
And then it becomes
And you might get a real answer. Like, actually, yes, there's a huge thing going on in my life. Can you be praying for this? That'd be great. And then you have homework. You got to like pray for someone you barely know. And like you're doing someone a favor that you barely know and you're showing them love, someone you barely know. And then that's it. You're showing the real love of Christ to someone who's a complete stranger. But it's hard. Yeah.
Wait, does Justin do that to like the people in line the entire time, or like the
checker who can't run away very quickly.
Well,
They're surrounded on 3 sides. That's just one way. There's lots of ways. Start a conversation with someone. Force some compassion out of yourself. Pray to God. Ask him for some of his, because he has infinite compassion. He really does love that person that you don't know, and he knows them infinitely better than they know themselves. And he really cares about them. And so sometimes when you're looking at a stranger and they don't care, realize God cares. You're supposed to be his representative. That's kind of your job. That's what being a disciple of Christ is all about, representing him in front of people. Jesus never once said, oh, you're from Rome, so you like worship other gods? Okay, that's cool. Nice. Jesus never said that. Do you understand?
Yeah.
To Jesus, God was so real, his own Father, who he'd been spending eternity with, that there was no way he could say, oh, you worship fake things, and you put your whole life around them and you listen to what fake things say? That's cool.
Awesome.
That'd be lying.
Not cool.
Do you understand? That's lying. So when we meet someone who falls another religion, we do want to be compassionate. We don't want to be a jerk. But compassion for them, kindness to them, is not leaving them and following that lie. That's like telling your friend, yeah, climbing on a greased roof is a sweet idea. You should totally go through with that. A greased roof. That's a great idea. Go ahead, climb on the greased roof. Put grease on the roof.
Oh, I thought you said a greased root.
Slather on
I'm
there
like,
real
what?
thick.
A greased root? What?
A greased root where we get grease from? That's a thing.
A grease.
That's a thing?
Google it.
A grease root?
No, it's not a thing. It does not exist. Alright. Do you guys get where the story went?
I don't know what's real.
I don't know all the things yet, Daniel. If you tell me about a thing, I'm going to think that it exists. Alright, so, John the Baptist went to his death just telling the simple truth. That's it. Herod? He basically wrecked his own life by taking the easy way out again and again and again. He what? Oh, okay. I thought you had something worthwhile, and that's why you shouted it out, because you want everyone to hear it. Is that not it? All right.
Want to share something with the class?
He can. I just, if he wants to. Hannah.
I was just gonna say, I think, like you were kind of saying a minute ago, but when you're like Jesus, he knew God so well. He was God, but we had that truth in himself.
Yeah.
When you're spending time in the Word of God, and when God's revealing himself to you, and you're just filled up and practically spilling over with the love of God in your life, it makes it so much easier to do that. And even if it's hard right at first, as soon as you break the ice or break that wall, it just comes pouring out of you, the love of God. You want people to know, you're excited about it. So yeah,
That's awesome.
it's really good to have that in your own life so you can share it with other people.
Right on. Alrighty. I think that's it for today, so we're going to pray. I do want to make sure you guys know about... Whoa, my flyer's gone.
Nerf night.
I had a flyer. No, Nerf night already
That
happened.
was yesterday.
Yes,
No,
Nerf night.
two flyers.
It was not. Oh, wait.
And Emily's getting me one. She's awesome. Thank you, Emily.
I guess
Yeah,
so.
it was fine.
It was
Boys want everyone
Halloween.
time, but we didn't feel like doing that.
All right, guys.
Like everything else was fun, but like the sleeping part.
Quick announcement while I still got you before you pray. This is the normal ending I was expecting. Church After Dark happening not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday on October 31st. We're going to be here from 6 to 10, having a right old party, and eating lots of food and eating lots of candy. So come on down, 6 to 10, bring a potluck dish to share, $5 for all the prizes and candy and stuff. We're just going to play games, it'll be great. Do you know when it is? When is the party?
November 6th. Wednesday the 3rd.
November 6th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
You come.
October 30th.
No one will be here. It'll be a great time. It's a Wednesday, October 31st, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., commonly known as Halloween.
I'm gonna come at 12.
Commonly. Not
Commonly known as Halloween.
usually, but commonly.
Yeah.
Commonly.
Ooh, you know what? I might actually do a challenge. I think we should do a challenge this year.
Oh, let's go.
I want to see. I want to see. Okay, we'll do a challenge. So, I'm thinking we're gonna have a Kahoot
Yeah.
that night, and because usually we play Kahoots on teams, right? So if I do a prize, like your whole team gets the prize, I want to make there be a challenge to you, the individuals, before you make any sort of teams. And the challenge is this: if you can tell me where Halloween comes from,
I looked at
when
it.
you show up. Now, to make this fair, because someone might just overhear you saying the answer to me that night, right? They'll overhear you, and then someone else will walk and be like, "Oh, I know," and they really just heard you say it. So I want you to write it down. I want you to just tell me in the shortest way possible. Not an essay. I don't want some book report. I just want on a scrap of paper the answer.
I know this
Does
one.
that make sense? If you can do it in one sentence,
No,
one
someone-
sentence. If
someone
it takes
write
you
down
5,
just
I'll
the
still
answer.
read it, okay?
Can we
But I
Google
want
it?
it as short as possible.
We Google it?
Where did Halloween come from? Do your research.
I can do it in
You
one
made a
word.
video on it.
But here's the deal.
Next week or the week after, because I'm not.
Here's the deal. This is a serious challenge. There is real misinformation out there. If you just Google it and you don't double check your sources, there is actual wrong info all over the internet. I researched this heavily, so trust me when I say there is more wrong websites than there is right websites. So if you really want to win a prize, and I'll have a few good ones, you gotta
not
actually
not like a bag of
check
candy or
this
something.
out.
Like
Say again?
Good, not like a bag of candy.
I don't know.
No, I mean like one of the small like Skittle bags.
No, nothing like that. That's hokey.
no.
This is like real deal research. You
The
gotta
big
get a good
giant
thing.
bag.
We're gonna bring you some good. Yes.
Does it have to go?
That is me giving you a hint if I say anything.
Okay.
So I can't say anything, right? I can't say yes. I can't say no. It'd be a hint. Yeah.
Could we just give you the original name of what it actually means?
Well, that wouldn't explain how it got here. Like,
That's what it's called.
does that make
Would you
sense?
like me to write down?
That's like
about it.
Know how it
yeah.
originated.
It's not gonna work. It's not gonna cut it. All right. Let's pray. Let's talk to God now, not each other, just for a minute, okay? Lord, we just thank you for what we learned out of Mark today. Thank you for John the Baptist as an example. Help us, Lord, to follow that example and to just have the courage to even try. Fill us with that courage, Lord, so that we're in a situation next time with a total stranger, with our closest friend, whatever it is, God. Help us to speak the truth. It's not always going to be the gospel that needs to be said, Lord. There's other truths you've given us. But the gospel too, whatever that truth is in that moment, you want us to speak to them. Help us to speak it. Help us to not stay quiet. Help us to break through that awkward. Help us to be people who take the harder path and not the easy way out. Lord, next time we're feeling like we need to impress someone or we need to do what they think we should do, may that just set us off and make us realize we're doing the wrong thing. Help us, Lord, in this to be more like John and less like Herod, to realize when all we're doing is spoiling someone. We ask you, Lord, for your help in this. We say all this in Jesus' name. Amen. I love you guys. Put your Bibles back on the shelf. There are flyers for October 31st on the kitchen counter over there. If you need a flyer, grab one. Invite a friend. Anyone from junior high is welcome.
No, all my friends are gonna be like, bro, my friend. Yeah, he's all set.
Dude, free candy you don't even have to go to house for.
But I'm going to house not out yet.
Let's go, man.
Oh, give me the ball, Mike.
You're good.
See, you fucking
Ned.
I don't know if mine's out yet. Am I gonna do it? No. My shot is going to be Dave.
Mine would have an auto winner.
I won again.
You seriously won again?
His name was John Henry.
Potluck is just a word that means we all bring one thing and then we all eat each other's things. That makes sense? Like you bring mac and cheese and then you get to eat his chicken and her mashed potatoes.
What are you doing? Oh, it's your turn. Oh, wait, what?
Allergic to what? Oh. So what we do is we try to do it by last name. So like based on what letter your last name starts with, you bring a different kind of dish. So we bring all different kinds of food. What, your last name is Galvanic, right? So you're in this one. So you're in side dish land.
Stop.
You're in any kind of side dish.
I still don't know what it is.
So side dish is like not the main course. Like main course, whole chicken, pull the legs off.
Stop.
The main course is like
Something small.
yeah, like you'd bring macaroni salad, or you'd bring green beans, right? Like green beans on the side is not the main thing we're eating. It's just like you put a little tiny pile of it on your plate. You know what I'm saying? So like if you think Thanksgiving dinner, turkey's the main course.
Oh, I can bring cranberry sauce.
You could bring cranberry sauce.
Oh my God.
Like
Yes.
literally anything that is not the main course is a side dish, unless it's a salad. We put that as a separate category. So there's like main dish, dessert, salad, and side dish. So side dish is actually the biggest category in terms of like number of dishes. Does that make sense? There's more side dishes in the world than
Okay,
anything
then I
else.
think I'm going to bring cranberry.
If you want to bring cranberry sauce,
Then I just wrote down what you said in your video.
Oh.
you have my cheat code. Yeah, you just summarize it in the shortest way possible. Put that on a scrap of paper and bring that in.
Okay, so
Caleb,
religion,
you wanna play?
what time period, where it was, the main idea, how it
You pretty much got it right there. You nailed it, Johnny.
Hey.
Alright. Thank you, Caleb, for picking up chairs.
Trash.
And $5. You got it.
Come on.
No. It's gonna be an epic.
Come on.
Hey.
Stop.
What is that?
One of my favorite songs. I'm having a house party.
Oh, nice. Is it not on
Keep
hold?
it going. Don't make it stop.
Very smart. That
Come
way
on, keep it going, Nate. Nate.
Stay still.
No. Do it.
Get him with the super soaker.
Oh. One more. Okay, one more. You ruined me.
It doesn't count. It doesn't count.
Ow, please don't chew away from me.
I need to stop. Caleb, going. What? Smash us okay?
Hey, do you want cheap food?
But it's more about the health
Hey, phone.
Daniel.
That's
It's kind of like hugging a kung fu knife.
It's like, you know, yeah, it's like
Don't say it like that.
You forgot to turn it up.
It's really weird that those are actually thicker than your arms, and they're actually like shorter than your arms, and yet it makes your arms look
They're so bad. Like,
Smaller.
on the GameCube, and when it hits it, it falls down. Wait, remember to turn it to stop. Hey, do you want me to be one of the most annoying characters in the game? Mr. Game and Watch. Wait, I need to do it. Do it with your arms.
lot of dyslexics bought this thinking it was a better deal than it was.
Purple.
Earth elemental.
Oh.
It's dark green. It's got an old beginning. It's got legs. It's made from plants. It says probably right there. So.
I'll kill him.
This is my point. Original is a word that means nothing. In this context, it literally means nothing. Right? Think about it. What does that tell you about this one?
Oh no. Oh, kill him. Kill him, CPU.
Nobody's made exactly like that before. Here,
Yeah.
let's just keep them on the CPU.
It might tell you they haven't changed the recipe. This is the way they've been making it.
It's got it.
But again, it's original. There shouldn't be a recipe.
It's hammer time.
So yes, of course it's original. You haven't put chemicals in it.
Ready? Oh, kill.
Sorry.
All these.
They're also here. It becomes Eggs Benedict. Here, it's hammer time. Here, keep them there.
You made it sound like of course we are.
Kill him. Kill him.
Special character fridge then.
Here, move.
Oh, you checked that real quick.
Wow. That was rude.
I should bring the fridge down right now.
Oh no.
If we can all ready to eat this out stuff.
John shot.
I never got back to you guys. No, that's okay.
He's out of the way.
Okay, I haven't written up my schedule yet. So if you guys wanted to
Sorry.
Can I sneeze Belgium at least once?
yeah, maybe an hour and a half if they go fast.
Ah,
I think I might just stay up here.
Change my bell.
Well, in B, you can actually use the hallway. Since we don't have a lot of extra time at the end of the party, I might just kick it into like one small game and a big game. I think it'll just take up a long time.
are you?
Oh, sorry.
Right, but it's
It's
using
Eggs.
all the tennis
Eggs
stuff.
Benedict with the hammer.
So my hope is that we'll be friends who are alive. I'm not super sure.
Oh, you.
Jump, Nate, jump.
We get more kids right now saying
I got it.
so,
I think the CD's out. Okay, no more TV.
and then we get kids saying, I don't think my friends will come. Some of our kids say I don't think my friends will come. But most
Oh.
so one of those actually
Nice
they
double.
turned out we're getting encouraged.
Oh,
So
kill.
what I'm aiming for is church service with a bit more game and a bit more like teaching activity, less sort of messy. And but I'm gonna put it in the same time slot for all those kids who are really
I forgot how bad
right.
they
So that there's still gonna be a little instrument playing at the beginning, then worship, then teaching time, same basic formula. Just
See?
you were here for it. Yeah.
Also,
Some
by
of
the
our
way, I
kids,
was not that
You
like
go into 10.
yeah. Some of our kids come in here as hip guys in the family. So they just pretend they don't tell their parents like, well, I wish you could, but we're not doing this.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Got it.
We can do that.
Use it. I didn't know where. I wasn't. Like I said.
I'll kill him.
I
Kill him.
didn't know
play the drums. Ah!
I'm not sure I believe you, but I heard.
I was.
I play the piano.
I'll put it this way. It's not your drum kit.
Okay.
That means get off the drums.
No, you.
Get off the drums.
Sebastian?
Get off the drums.
Oh, you're not good enough to play it.
Lethal force.
Sebastian, no.
Or
Hey.
just
Ah!
Oh my gosh, that was so hard.
It was right here.
oh!
Oh.
Wait, don't use me. That hurts really bad.
No, look, I put it down.
Or
Leave it alone.
No,
Tina.
no, let me have it.
Let go.
Do it. Oh, there's it. Where did you find it? Oh! No!
I play very beautiful. Sonny, please.
Ah!
oh, see, it hurts, doesn't it? It hurts.
Well, at the same
okay.
time, we shall be together.
It hurts. Okay.
Not at the face, not at the face.
Wait. Oh.
Just get my balloons over here, will you? Sonny, not at the face.
No, you're not.
Hold on, hold on.
Luigi is here. Luigi is here.
Wait, hold on.
Kill himself with the
Oh, I got Wait.
Do that.
No.
Who said you had to?
Wait.
How
Oh, this
no, I can't do it.
Done this. Okay,
Why are you so good?
I've been playing since I was like 3.
I envy. No, I'm just kidding.
What you did? No.
Oh, okay.
You guys are good.
Oh, yeah, we gotta go.
Wait, hold on, hold on. No, I was gonna shoot at you.
It's hard to sing with it like
Sebastian, look.
It's beautiful, right?
the chorus is my favorite.
We gotta
The
go.
chorus sounds so good.
No. Ah!
Wait, can I sing sick? Can I sing sick?
It's so good.
Oh my gosh, wait.
You're not doing it. Sorry.
Wait,
Thank you. I shall join.
Oh my gosh.
Can I sing sick?
Can I
Sing it.
sing stick?
Oh my god. Go right here so I don't.
Okay, watch out.
Oh no, guys, no.
I'm gonna do so bad. This is not. Oh.
That was a bad hit.
We gotta go though.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh.
Nice.
I love you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
But I love this.
Emily is mother.
I need my stuff.